Hello. 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 Terraria again. We're back. Let me make sure it's capturing audio correctly. Yep. Awesome. Alright. Been a few days, mostly because of the weekend. Will not be playing what's this one? Will not be playing Monster Train today, both because it humiliated me yesterday. And also I've been playing it a lot. I could use a Monster Train break or I'm gonna burn out real fast. Because that is an issue I have with games. What were we doing? We did the incredibly easy, much easier than remembered Skeletron Prime last time. And next, so twins are also pretty easy. They are typically the first one I fight. So I'm not really gonna have too much of an issue with the twins. The worm, I don't think I'll have too much of an issue with, but I really need a better piercing weapon. And word on the block is there's a pretty easy one I could get that is, like, relatively cheesy. So that's the one I'm going for. I still can't open that. I need to make more houses, don't I? Ugh. That's like the part of this I've been dreading the most. Alright. We have a house for you. We have a house for you. Did they move in down there? Two of them did. Golfer, you're not really supposed to be there. Golfer is technically supposed to be up here, isn't he? I think so. I would rather... Where is the zoologist moved in if none of these houses? You took her house. Nurse, you can stay there. The golfer, I'm not going crazy, right? He wants to, yeah, he wants to be on the surface biome. Gotcha. No reason why I can't build a little shitty house over there. Give me a different kind of building material than wood, though. Give me a disgusting brick house with mahogany roof. That's what kind of guy this is. Red house. So in non-Terraria related news, something I'm excited about. This is like my favorite day. Oh, wait, I was gonna do mahogany roof. There's a new Path of Exile League announcement. Which I don't know why. I don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing for Path of Exile, but I always get like infinitely more excited for the League announcement than I do for the League. Like day one of the League, I'm always like excited to play it. Like the past few leagues, I've played them all day one. But there's nothing quite like that excitement when you don't know what you're gonna get, you know? League could be anything. No, what am I doing here? Dude, guide, you could have just stayed inside, man. Like, that one's not on me. It's an interesting league this time around. So, like I said, it's like literally the exact conversation I had during Terraria before. The guide is immediately back. Why doesn't he do that when you're fighting Wall of Flesh? Oh, and the wizard moved houses to his house. Why? Why are these two different houses? What? How is that working out? Excuse me? I thought there had to be walls? Like, solid block walls to make a new house, but I guess not. I guess I have no idea how houses work. Anyways. Yeah, new league. It's the exact same situation that I was talking about previously during Terraria, about fishing. It is very much the case of, like, it's not a hard idea to figure out. It's like, how do I put farming in this game, you know? And Terraria's answer is... I mean, you know, for all the things Terraria does right, Terraria's answer to farming is like the most surface level shit of all time. Which I can't blame it too much for, because like potions and the herbs were like a very early on addition. Like, I can't remember, I think it might be pre-hard mode that potions... It has to have been pre-hard mode for potions to be introduced. But yeah, Terraria's farming is literally just... plant a bunch of seeds and you get a bunch of plants. And that's it. Which is not surprising. Not surprising at all. But as I would expect, Path of Exiles... What kind of... he's getting cactus furniture. Path of Exiles farming is, Oh, did you really... Come on, you dickhead. No longer became two separate houses for some reason. Yeah, to no one's surprise, Path of Exiles... new farming... is going to have you farming monsters that you eventually kill, because Path of Exile does a good job at understanding what they do well and making sure that all added mechanics focus around what they do well. Alright, golfer, you go there. Who was supposed to be down there? Demolitionist. Yeah, okay. Do I have the Demolitionist? No. Okay. The fucking... The wizard has occupied an overflowing house position for far too long. Oh, no! How did you spread, and where, and why? And where? What happened to my sunflower? What happened to any of this? It was clean. Where did it come from? I swear to God, like, the corruption actually just makes up its own goddamned rules. It just spreads for no goddamn reason. At the very least, now I can get the Contaminator, but like, what the fuck, dude? Like, that's so infuriating. I spent like 30 minutes to an hour just fucking cleaning up corruption throughout the past two streams, and for what? It seems to have done absolutely nothing. It just spreads for fun. Like, I was under the original... That's not enough purification powder. I was under the original assumption that it could only spread from block to block, because that's the only information that I have seen about it. And I'm pretty sure they removed the Corruptor's ability to shoot corruption. And even if they didn't remove that ability, I haven't really seen any Corruptor bullets coming over here. I feel like I would have noticed that. Oh, it's frustrating. It's frustrating. It's like why did I spend any amount of time caring about the corruption if it was just going to be completely washed away? All of the effort I put in, gone. I don't know where that worm went, but I guess he's gone. Rare furniture crafter. The thing everybody gets excited about, I'm sure. Yeah, so like this is fucking corruption handling in general is an example of like Terraria. I don't know, I guess they want it to be interesting, but it's not really interesting. It's just kind of like when you don't have to worry about it, it doesn't add anything, and when you do have to worry about it, it's like the most annoying micromanagement shit of all time. Like, I just want to... Why am I getting so many meat grinders now? I just want to have a Terraria experience, you know, I want to beat the game, I want to kill the bosses and proceed with my life, but instead... Ooh, I'll take that. But instead, I have to sit here throwing fucking powder every 2 blocks because that's what they deemed was fun gameplay. Like, 6 years ago. Terraria has, like, a lot of very obvious, I don't know how to call it, like, misfortunes. A lot of, I mean, just, like, leftover garbage. I'm just gonna say it flat out how it feels. They have a leftover garbage problem. Terraria has been in development for many, many years, and very rarely have they touched back on old content. They have. They've done it a few times, and this one, in particular, Journey's End. I need to get rid of that vine, or it'll still grow. I don't even know, like, why is that a empty tile? Just place a block there. Yeah, very, very rarely does Terraria touch back on content that has already been put into the game. Like, there has never been a serious removal of content in Terraria. It's basically, once they added it 8 years in the past, no matter how horrible it is, their only option is to either they've rebalanced it, they've reworked some things, but they've never been like, oh, this is just bad. Let's take that out. Which is understandable. When, it would affect a lot of things if they did decide to remove things like that. Some people, some wrong people, will decide, oh, actually, I liked that, and be upset when you remove it. But in my opinion, if you're going to be maintaining a project like this for many, many years, the one thing you should be most cautious about is how players will view and interact with your old content. Like, you don't want to have completely, like, outdated mechanics that don't really adhere to what the modern, current, updated, new mechanics are all about. And I'm sure that they probably talked about that and, you know, have done their best to try and alleviate any issues regarding that stuff, but, like, it's a weird balance, and I don't really think that Terraria would ever even consider that kind of thing. It's kind of like, I don't know, I kind of hate the idea, like, I've heard some people talk about, you know, how hard it must be to add things to Minecraft, because, like, the example being diamonds, obviously, right? Like, you don't want to ruin the value of diamonds. I get that. On the other hand, though, there are... And Minecraft's a weird example, because, like, in my opinion, the best additions to Minecraft are to world generation and block variety, and any sort of building stuff is super appreciated. Farming, different farming things you can do, redstone things you can do, just ways to interact with the world that are new. These things don't require, like, any sort of power creep, you know? Like, you don't need a material better than diamond. Netherite is interesting, but, like, even without netherite, there's still plenty of reason to experience the new nether content without a new ultra rare, better than diamond material, right? There's plenty of reason. Like, the bastions are just cool. The piglin trading is obviously, you can get a lot of good stuff. Less good stuff, I think, since a recent update. They kind of nerfed it a little bit, but I mean, there's still a reason to do it. Obviously, gold farms have always been a thing in the Nether since pigmen have been around, which is forever. And dropping gold, which has been less forever, but still a long time. But outside of that, like, just the new additions, like, you don't need more reason to explore the new Nether content other than it's got new blocks, honestly. Like, that is good enough. And, there are... So, like, I like the addition of, as I stutter my way through this, I like the addition of quartz, because it's a building block that you can use, a very expensive one, but it's a building block. It adds new redstone things, which is another way to interact with the world, like I said. And it's a new ore, so, like, there's reason to get excited by, like, mining in the Nether, although it's kind of like, you know, it's all over the walls, you don't really have to look for it. But, you know, things like that. Minecraft is a weird example where it's different than most games in that there's, like, very, very little emphasis on combat in Minecraft. So it can get away with pretty easy content addition, in my opinion. Like, bees and honey blocks and all of that. Super easy to add to a game like Minecraft without upsetting anybody. It's just... No one's gonna be like, oh, you power creeped because the honey blocks are just too strong. They let you avoid fall damage, like water that has been in the game since creation, pretty much. You know, just any, like, different... I don't know how I want to phrase this. I mean, really just any block. Like, you can just add a new block, and that's a good enough reason to get excited. If the block has a utility, cool, like, even better. But there's no power creep in Minecraft, so I don't understand why anybody is like, oh, content addition to Minecraft must be impossible. Like, that's just, it's not the same kind of content creation. And if you want it to be the same kind of content creation, either use mods or play a different game, because, like, I don't understand why people are always expecting them to add something better than diamond. It doesn't, like, diamond is already ridiculous with enchantments and everything. Why even bother? You know? You're basically invincible. And elytra are sick. Like, that's probably the best addition to Minecraft. in since it was released, probably. Elytra and the ability to use rockets with them. Just... I mean, if you want to call that power creep, if you want to say they power creeped the movement, then fine. Like, personally, the only thing that I'm a little turned off by as far as Minecraft content additions recently has been them kind of doubling down on the riding boats on ice thing. Not because I don't think it's good. I think it's, like... there's a few things I have to say about it. One, why boats? If you're gonna double down and keep it as a mechanic, why boats? You know? Why something that... I mean, frankly, doesn't make any goddamn sense that you would go that fast riding a boat on ice that is blue ice, turbocharged special ice. You know, it just doesn't make sense to me, so that is upsetting for one. But also, two, the thing that upsets me about it is because I do think there should be a faster method of travel than Elytra that requires infrastructure, which is exactly what the boats and blue ice are. But why do minecarts exist then? What is the point of minecarts? I think if they were going to double down on the blue ice thing, and they could still change it, I don't think they should remove it, because minecarts are way too slow. Minecarts are slower than Elytra in most cases, so why ever use minecarts, right? Like, they should be rewarding for the amount of extra effort you have to put into them. And there's still reasons to use minecarts, like for redstone reasons, for hopper minecarts, etc., but I feel like they could also easily take back their, well, I mean, they never really had a place as movement or transportation, because minecarts were never really all that much faster than running, since running was added, I guess. Okay, that's enough purification for now. It pisses me off that it is still there, but I should just build more houses and I'll get the contaminator. So, if I was to do anything, I would just remove the boat's ability to move as fucking ridiculous turbo fast as they do on ice, and instead make it so that when you put minecarts on blue ice, they get the same ice benefits. It still doesn't make that much sense, but at least it makes more sense and requires extra infrastructure, whereas... Well, actually, it doesn't actually change anything, because most people... I mean, pretty much everybody, like, if you're making a minecart track in the nether, or sorry, ice boat track in the nether, which is what most people do, because that's obviously 8 times faster than doing it on Overworld. Most people either put tracks down or some other form of block, like, I think string works and is less visible, but yeah. I mean, if you're using tracks already, just to block mobs that spawn from walking on your ice, then it would take literally no change in infrastructure, and also, I don't know, it just makes more sense to me to use a minecart to go fast instead of a boat on ice. So, that derailed really easily. Let me figure out whose house I need to build first, and then I'll get back to my original point. Merchant has a house, nurse has a house, that guy has a house, that guy has a house, 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 does not have a house, has 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 a house, does not have a house. Okay, so I'm learning I just need to build 2 hollowed houses. Got it. The original point. Yeah, that's right. What was the original point? The original point was I was talking about power creep. And I was saying, why do I have 2 meat grinders? I don't want a single meat grinder. Just give me the money. Okay, I need to get fucking focused. Where I need to make a hollow biome because I don't have one. I mean, the ice one is technically hollowed, but not really in a usable situation. Let me look at this shit so I can see where I would want. So that is going to be a pylon. There's not really anywhere else I would want a pylon. So I guess, if anywhere, just have a slightly closer... well, that kind of gets rid of my desert fishing spot if I care about desert fishing. Which I don't really. I don't really care about fishing in general. I kind of hate fishing, but we'll get back to that when I get back to the original point, which is talking about Path of Exile. Yeah, I'm just gonna make this hollowed desert. What are these? Palm trees. Oh, weird. Never noticed that there were trees growing in the desert. Yeah, okay. Get some hollowed seeds from this lady. I still need to kill the bee. I'll kill the bee at some point. There they are. I knew she sold. Sold. Hollowed seeds somewhere. Do you have to place them on grass, or can I... you probably do have to place them on grass. Okay. It'll spread to the place I want it to. And because of this shit, it should not spread to the ocean. Preferably. Oh, you do have to break the grass first, gross. Well, let's test it. Can I just put it on sand? Of course not. Of course not. Alright, then I'm gonna do the grossest thing in the world, and, oh yeah, I forgot I was gonna gnome a farm. Still in my plans. Actually, never gonna happen. I will never finish this gnome farming thing, because there's just no real reason to get into the gnomes. Like, there's a slight benefit you get from luck in this game, but last time I checked the wiki, the real benefits didn't seem that beneficial. So I don't care. Alright, I am gonna do the grossest thing, though. Which is just put some nasty dirt blocks everywhere. So I can put hollowed grass on them. Cacti everywhere, like the little baby cacti. I don't know how many of these I've placed so far. Hopefully that's enough. And I think this should count as hollowed and not desert when it spreads. Alright, so going back on track now. Minecraft is lucky in that it doesn't have to worry about power creep. I do want to say one other thing about Minecraft, I guess. I want to say that the one thing that is often brought up in relation to people thinking Minecraft needs power creep for whatever dumbass reason, I'm sorry, but like, if you're one of those people, you're kind of a dumbass. That is mean, but also I agree with it, so I do feel like it needs to be said. You're not a dumbass, just change your opinion and you'll be fine. There's just like, there's so many videos that absolutely infuriate me when they talk about what Minecraft needs, and like, just armchair game designers in general are just the worst. And I mean, you know, people can say that I'm no different because I have no degree in game designing, but as much as it'll probably definitely really upset people who do have a degree in it, I think that getting a degree in game design is maybe the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. Like, that's very... I'm going super off topic here. And, probably upsetting more people than I should endeavor to, while I wait for the hollow to spread. It does spread, right? Like, it should spread directly to the sand? I'm not going crazy, right? Oh, yeah, look at that. And, as we can see, it does not spread directly from block to block. There is a clear jump from block there. Like, the wiki has such misleading information about the spread. Either it was updated and no longer requires direct block-to-block contact, or the wiki should really work on that. But yeah, if anybody out there watching this is like, man oh man, I really want to get into making games, I've got so many ideas, I just don't know how to do it. Number one thing you should never do is consider going to school for game design. God, I can't even imagine. Like, oh, it's just the worst shit of all time. If you want to make games, and you do want to go to college or whatever, like, I'm not gonna say you shouldn't go to college. I didn't go to college and never plan to, just because it doesn't, I mean, you know, this will definitely have some people, like, look at me kind of weird and be like, oh, he doesn't really know what he's talking about, which, fair enough, if that's what you think. I really feel like just college in general, I don't really agree with going to and spending thousands upon thousands of dollars, at least if you're in US, which I am. I don't think it's a sensible idea unless you have a very clear idea of what you want to do. And most people going to college have absolutely no idea what they want to do. So again, if you want to make games, I'm not going to say you shouldn't go to college, because there are certainly things that you could learn in college that will benefit game creation. But learn... Oh, that could have been a free gnome. My first gnome in this world, and he got destroyed by the passive effect I have no control over. Oh, I could have unsummoned my imp, I guess. Anyways, if you want to make games, learn a practical skill in relation to making games. Learn how to code. You know, improve your art skills. I mean, I honestly don't really think that, and this will maybe upset more people, but I think if you're going to, well, it depends on what you want to do with games. That's like the first thing you should think of. What do you want to do with games? Do you want to be hired by a AAA company? Most people probably don't. Maybe some people do, but I don't know. A lot of people, maybe not more recently in the world, but for a long time, the general idea seemed to be, and it definitely isn't like this anymore, so I don't even know why I prefaced it as a possibility. A lot of people used to seem to think that the only way to make games was to get hired by a AAA company, which is obviously not true anymore, or ever, but, like, at least now there's a fair enough sample size that people can be like, oh, you can just make games on your own. And you can. And it's sick, and if you want to make games, I recommend it. Not that I'm like a shining example or anything, but we don't need to talk about that to get my point across. I mean, I still, you know, I make games. Like, it's not... Even though I haven't... It's a weird spot for me, and at some point I'll find out where this narrative is going, and I'll make one coherent point. It's a weird spot for me to stand when I talk about my own games, which is only a single finished game at the moment. Well, finished and publicly available. Obviously, I've made more than one game, but, you know, you don't release the pure garbage. You can release a little bit of garbage, but nothing pure garbage. Basically, if anybody looks up my games and is like, oh my god, these are garbage, that's fair. At least the games I've currently worked on, which, like I said, are 2 public. One is finished and one is unfinished, but you can still play it publicly. Neither of those games I put literally any planning into. I just wanted to work on making something so that I could, you know, commit myself to it and, you know, have a finished product at the end. I think that's pretty important. If you're going to make games on your own, you should not give up so easily. You should really force yourself to finish some projects so you have something to have out there, at least either to build up repertoire of people who maybe way down the future will be like, oh my god, he made that garbage game, and you can be like, yeah, but, you know, I made this not-so-garbage game somewhat more recently. There's plenty of reasons for why you should start making early and try and finish your projects, but where was I'm like, the way I'm going through this conversation is like unraveling things I want to talk about, and then trying to ravel my way back up, layer by layer, to the most recent conversation point that has not been finalized. So yeah, what I was saying is, if you want to make games, this is gonna be another one of the, like, I can tell already, I've been walking back and forth in this desert, doing jack shit, waiting for a hollow to spread. This is probably going to be one of those Terraria episodes where, if you don't like me talking and rambling about what is nonsense to most people who don't really care about this sort of thing, probably just skip this one. Not much progress is going to be made. I might fight a boss at the end of it, but this Terraria stream series it's kind of just been my ramble zone, especially more recently since the progress has really slowed down, and that's partially my fault, but partially Master Mode, and partially just the corruption really didn't help. But anyways, we'll get back to Terraria conversation at some point after I do this game design shit I'm saying, getting pissed about mentally. Please, if you want to make games, here's my very good, solid advice that I think everybody should take to heart, despite not knowing me at all and probably have no reason to trust me, and also I have no fame or recognition behind me to show you that I've actually succeeded. But maybe if someone's watching this like 6 or 7 years in the future and I've got a banging game that everybody loves, this conversation might hold a little more value in people's hearts. Or maybe I just fucking, maybe I constantly put out shitty games and everybody hates them forever, and then maybe just don't listen to this conversation, and maybe I'm stupid and don't know what I'm talking about. But anyways, the biggest thing I could say if somebody cares about making games is just, and it's like the easiest advice, and it's not even thought-provoking, it's not life-changing, you know? I don't think by hearing these words you're all of a sudden going to realize your path in life. But my advice is just make games. Who would have thought? It's echoed by pretty much everybody who independently creates games, so it's not a big shocker. If you don't know how to make games, that's cool. I didn't know how to make games either. There are plenty of tools available. If college is too pricey for you, I mean, here's the thing. Like, go to tie a little knot on my college conversation real quick. I'll just say that I don't really recommend going to college and spending thousands of dollars when you don't know what to do, and also, if you really want to go to college just to have a degree, and hope that you'll figure out what you want to do along the way, because there are so many people who do that. Just go to a community college, please. Please. Unless you're, like, super confident you know what you want to do, maybe you can, you know, reason with yourself for spending thousands and thousands of dollars getting into a specific school that's renowned for whatever field you want to enter, and that definitely holds some sort of value when getting hired, but you know, unless there's some sort of program with that school that will guarantee you an internship or something, I really don't think it's worth bothering. I think community college is a much better option than most people give it credit for. But anyways, I just don't like people going into debt for their entire lives, I guess. The idea of that is pretty disgusting. But hey, maybe the US will change. Probably not soon. You take a look outside recently, but anyways, I don't want to get into too current events right now. Outside of saying Black Lives Matter. Like, that's not controversial. And anybody who is going to argue against... I mean, just like, come on. You know, if you don't agree with the movements going on right now, or throughout, you know, the past few years, it's obviously been a continuous struggle, then I don't know what to say to you. Whatever I could say is definitely going to change your mind, so there's no worth trying to argue. I've lost point of my topic, and I did get into current events, but it's important. It's important. Not that I have any sort of reach, but it really does matter. Anyways, frustrations with the world aside, I'll talk about my frustrations with my more personal world that I can definitely add a little bit more commentary on, other than people should stop being horrible, racist assholes around the world. Yeah, just work on a skill, you know? You want to make games, what seems fun to you? What part of the creation process seems fun to you? If you're crazy, like me, and you want to do most of it yourself, then to learn multiple things. You know, programming isn't as hard as people make it out to be. And there's infinite resources for it online. Like, people act like programming is this hard, obscure thing that only a certain set of people are, like, even able to do it. Like, oh, I couldn't program. Like, that's not for me. And to a certain degree, like, it's as much of a, oh, I couldn't do that, as anything. Like, people say that for art. Like, can you imagine saying, oh, I could never do something like that, when it literally involves just, like, wiggling your arm in a certain way? And obviously there's more to it than that, but, like, it's, you know, you can do it, so long as you're physically able to. Which, to be fair, not everybody is. But, tools for those who aren't able. More and more come out by the year, which is, you know, exciting. Did you hear? I mean, definitely if you are obviously able to. It does sound very frustrating to have to do this. So it's by no means reached the peak convenience yet, but I did find it slightly hilarious, but also very sick and awesome. That I wish I remembered the game, and I feel really bad that I don't. If I googled it, I could probably find an article. You know, I probably should, just for, like, my own sanity, and also because it's, like, the right thing to do in this situation. I should, give credit to the actual creators real quick. Let me see. Dude, this is... Why doesn't Google give me what I want? Dude, I could describe the game. Is this the... Okay, yeah. I think I found it. Dude. Okay, well, I remembered the game, and hopefully I... Okay, yes. I did remember the game. There's an independent game called Dig Dog, which I have not played. So I can't really comment on the game itself, but I'm not sure what his development position is, but I believe... I mean, he definitely had something to do with program. I'm not sure if he was the only programmer or lead programmer or whatever. Given the situation, I would assume he's the only programmer, but maybe not. He could not properly code due to, I think it was repetitive stress injury, but you could look up the article yourself and find out. I'm pretty sure it was for repetitive stress injury, preventing him from using his hands all that well, because it would hurt really bad, as anybody who has had repetitive stress injury before would know. You basically just should not and cannot really use your hands, fingers, wrists, whatever it is that's currently injured. So he programmed... I don't remember how much it was. I'm not sure if it's an absurd amount, but definitely a part of the game. And I believe a substantial part, more so than just, oh, I coded a few lines with it. He coded a fairly substantial amount of the game using text-to-speech. Well, speech-to-text, I guess, more accurately. Which is probably why my Google results weren't giving me what I wanted, because I was putting in text-to-speech like a dumbass. So yeah, I mean, there's options. I don't want to, you know... I don't know the right way to say this. Like, I don't... I mean, it's obviously awesome that, anybody, you know, so long as... I mean, not anybody. There are obviously some exceptional cases where, unfortunately, some people will not be able to create, but I would say that at least it's getting to the point. We're getting closer to the point where anybody can have access to pretty much any sort of creation tools they would be interested in, which is sick, obviously. We're getting closer. This is the main point I want to bring across, which is awesome. There's definitely still work that needs to be done to make things more accessible, but, you know, just the fact that voice recognition could reasonably get to the point where he could, and I think he used some keystrokes, which is maybe, I don't want to say he did, because he might not have. I don't honestly know. I should actually read the full article if I care to talk about it, but it's cool. It's basically what I'm saying. And I lost the track of what I was originally saying. I think I was saying, you know, anybody can make games pretty much. Anybody who thinks they can't. It's the difference between knowing you can't. Obviously, certain medical conditions might prevent you from certain aspects. Unfortunately, the blind might have an issue drawing, but not always. You know, there's certain things you can get across. But anyways, enough me trying to be as inclusive as possible, though I wish I could be as inclusive as possible. The point I'm getting across here is, if you don't know that you can't do something, and you just think that you can't do something, because plenty of people think that they can't program, it is not something that's hard to get into. It is not by any means required to go to college for programming. At all, like even remotely, like it's not that bad. It's definitely tricky at first, and it's like a different. I mean, a lot of people say like, "Oh, programming languages, it's like a different language. You got to learn a different language." It's not really like a different language. It's just, I guess to some degree there are similarities. It's just figuring out how do I get the computer to do what I want it to. And there are some very early on examples where you'll be like, okay, I understand this. You know, you got a variable, that's a number. I can understand, you know, you set this to a certain number. I know a lot of people starting out get thrown off by the equal sign, not doing what people expect it to. But, you know, outside of those, like, minor barriers, at some point it just clicks, and that clicking moment is, and it takes a lot of Googling still. I mean, me still, been programming for years, and I constantly Google syntax because, like, I mean, outside of switching between multiple languages multiple times, like, you don't need to know. Like, unless you're applying for a job and they expect you to know, like, full C++ syntax like the back of your hand, you don't need to know that kind of thing. And even, like, you could fake your way through a job interview, and then as soon as you're hired, no one's gonna scoff at you for Googling, you know, oh, what is it? Is it virtual? Is that the keyword I'm looking for? Oh yeah, it's virtual. Okay. Like, you know, that kind of stuff does not matter. That's not, like, programming knowledge. It's just, like, what fucking specific random arbitrary word from vocabulary did they decide to use for this functionality, right? So yeah, you know, you want to make games, make games. That's the end of that topic. So, I think somehow, I don't remember how I spurred myself into getting... Oh, yeah, because I'm pissed at anybody who goes to college for game design. Oh, I forgot to bring it all back to the main point. No matter who you are, if you want to make games, you can make games if you are physically able to. I'm sorry, I have to keep bringing that back because I don't want people to be sad when I say that. Don't go to school for game design, please. Do me a solid, right? Do me a favor and never go to school for game design. Which, you know, it sucks because there's certainly cool professors who teach game design, Bennett Foddy being one of them. It just... And I feel like they would understand if I had this conversation to them, right? I feel like anybody who has made games is... I mean, Bennett Foddy didn't go to a school for game design. I'm pretty sure he didn't. I'm sorry if he did, and I'm misrepresenting him. He definitely started making games before going to school for game design, I would assume. Okay, I shouldn't talk on behalf of Bennett Foddy's history when I don't really know. But, I don't know. I mean, at the very least, it's safe to say that the vast majority of independent games, most of which people probably have quite a few independent games that they enjoy, it's safe to say that at least half, I would reckon it's closer to like 90% or 95%, but at least half did not go to school for game design, okay? And there's clear examples of that in Terraria, for example. Like, I'm not saying you need to go to school for game design, I'm just making a joke at Terraria's expense, because there are some very poorly designed aspects of it. Anyways, I'll get back to the original point about Terraria at some point. I should really stop talking about how we'll get back to the point. Everybody at this point should assume I'm getting back to the point one of these days. Fucking game design. Game design is something you learn from experimentation. Making games, seeing, oh, is this fun? Having other friends to test your games, say, is this fun? Playing it yourself over and over again until you make it fun. And playing other games. And like the best school for game design is just play games that you love. Play games that you absolutely adore. Think about everything that makes you love them, and most importantly, this is the biggest one. Think about everything that makes you hate the games you love. Because I love Terraria, but ooh, are there so many things I hate about it. And those are the most important things, I think, in regards to game design. Now, especially if you're interested in more raw forms of games, like board game design, just tabletop games in general, card game design, ooh. And not just like Magic, like something like Hanabi blows me away. Just thinking of the idea, the amount of iterations it must have taken before they nailed the iconic version of Hanabi, having the 5 different suits and the balance of how many cards per number do we give out, Really, really great stuff. And obviously there's house rules that can affect things like this, but yeah, definitely I would say video games are by far the easiest game formula to design. Next would come board games and tabletop games, and next would come card games. I don't even know how you design a card game. And I'm talking about... Like, okay, let's split it up into 2 categories. Board games after video games, CCGs after board games, and like just raw fucking card games after CCGs. Like, how do you begin designing just a card game? It's such a hard thing for me to imagine. Like, who made Solitaire? Solitaire has shit tons of problems, and I don't really like Solitaire, but, how do you think of that? Anyways. So yeah, anybody can make games. Listen to me. I'm saying that video games, which is what most people want to make, are the easiest thing to design when thinking about game design. What are you doing not doing game design? And I mean, I don't even understand it, because like so many people are like, oh, I've got this great game idea, and I mean, if you've never made a game, it is like, you know, I hate to say it, but like, if you've never made a game, when you say, oh, I've got this great game idea, why won't Nintendo listen to me and put it on the Switch already? Your game idea probably sucks. But that's okay. You know? No one needs to have their very first game to be a huge success. And if you really, really love that idea, well, there's a problem with loving an idea too much. Like, that is an actual huge problem. If you love your own idea too much, you're not going to make it as good as it can be. Hey, look at that. Blessed apple farming. Have they buffed this at all, or is it still garbage in relation to the new mounts? I mean, oh, wait. Extra double jump? Maybe it's always had that. I think it's always had that. It seems like it damages faster than the other mounts I've seen them add damage. Maybe it's the same though. Who knows? Anyways, little distraction, but getting back on topic. If you love your own ideas too much, it's gonna hurt too much to rationalize with yourself that some things about it may be bad, and some things about it may need, like, major reworking. So love your own ideas, but don't love them too much. Definitely understand that they probably have a lot of problems with them in your head, and that's okay. You just work through those problems one by one and make it a better product. So that being said, so many people, you know, have such big talk about how amazing their game ideas are. Why do so many people, and it's not really that large of a number, but it's more than I would like. It's a large enough number to make me a little upset. Why do so many people think they need to go to school for game design? It's frustrating. Outside of, like, potentially, depending on who your professor is, outside of the maybe connection to AAA game companies that maybe would actually follow through with a job, but in all likelihood probably not, I don't see the point. But maybe I'm the crazy one. I'm just very opinionated about it. It just upsets me. Like, you could go to college for anything. Why are you going to college for the thing that you can get the easiest for free? Just play games a lot. Just play games a lot and, you know, write down things that you love. Certain systems, certain mechanics, certain ways that things interact with each other. Get down to the specifics. Get down to, oh, I love the way this UI is implemented. I am talking to, for the most part, myself, man. But, you know, you gotta keep talking. You gotta keep talking. 'Cause if I was literally, I mean, I keep all of my VODs on YouTube. If I was completely silent when there was nobody to talk to, that would be about the most boring content you could have to rewatch later in the future. Onyx Blaster is as tasty as it's ever gonna be, man. But yeah, I just, it frustrates me how many people, go to college for game design. Write things down. Just take notes. Take notes about what you like in games. Have a journal of game ideas that you know, see problems with, or take inspiration from other games that are similar. Like, say you want to make a JRPG, play a lot of JRPGs, and, you know, write down notes of what do you like about certain systems, what don't you like. And eventually, you'll have a good understanding of game design without needing to spend more money than you own and going into debt for the rest of your life. So back to the very, very original topic, which was talking about things in Terraria itself that are relics of the past and seem outdated not only in terms of design, but outdated in terms of enjoyability. Like, first and foremost, it is a whip, and at the end of last stream is where I crafted it. I am disappointed. I am very disappointed by this whip. It does not do that much damage on its own, and its buff, the snowflake it crafts, it doesn't make more than one. It maxes out at one snowflake, and it has a 2-second a 2-second duration before disappearing. Like, if they were gonna make the duration so short, why not? Like, I get that they want you to keep upkeep on it. You want to keep whipping. Yeah, but like, the obvious design behind this weapon is it has a short duration on the buff because they expect you to keep whipping for upkeep purposes, right? You need to whip at least every 2 seconds to keep this a nice buff, as they call it. And if they expect this to be your only, like, main damage weapon as a summoner, why not make it better? You can still have the forced, like, incentive to use the whip. At least it's something. That's like that's the main thing to take home, is at least summoners got something. But it's still not viable, considering, like, this is such the Onyx Blaster is the easiest thing to craft. Like, I spent maybe an hour having, like, no prior equipment, and I crafted this Onyx Blaster, which is going to carry me for all of the mechanical bosses, pretty much. I'm gonna need something piercing for the Worm Destroyer, like I said, but other than that, like, this is plenty. I killed Skeletron Prime easily with it, and twins aren't going to be that much harder. So this is like, and this is the best whip I could have at the moment, so the fact that it's so disappointing is pretty disappointing. If anything, if I was going to change this, I would still keep the incentive of 2-second duration to, like, incentivize whipping constantly, but make it so you can stack snowflakes. Like, if the snowflakes only last 2 seconds, then let me spam it so I can have, like, a max upkeep of 5 or 6 of them. It wouldn't even be that crazy strong, because the snowflakes themselves kind of suck, and it would not be any more powerful than the Onyx Blaster if I had 6 of them or so. The whip damage itself, I mean, yeah, that's something to be said too. With, well, I'm not wearing summoner armor, though. Although there isn't really any summoner armor you could get at this point. What is the first summoner armor? Isn't the first summoner armor... Let me think about that. Is it the Halloween event? Surely there's something sooner than that. Oh, bee armor. Ugh. But that has such low defense that you can't use it in hard mode. So the fact that there is, like, no summoner armor you can really use, you could have the summoner's emblem for 15% increase, which would make this damage not bad, honestly. I'm not upset with the damage from the whip. I'm upset with the patheticness of the snowflakes. I wish you could have multiple snowflakes. Like, it would still incentivize you to only use the whip, because the more you're using the whip, the more snowflakes you could fit in between that 2-second time period. Yeah, the difference is there's absolutely nothing beneficial about being a summoner. Like, the B armor... First off, doesn't it only give you 1 extra summon? Maybe 2? In Master Mode, the defense would be so low. Like, at least there is mage armor that is comparable to the ranged and attack melee armor. It's like maybe 15 defense points lower at its worst. Whereas the B armor, I'll get the actual stats. Let's get the actual stats here, so I'm not talking out of my ass. Let's get the real stats, boy. And then I'll get back to my topic about things I think are outdated in Terraria. Summoner is not really outdated, it's just kind of been neglected for way too long. Terraria armor. So again, defense, and this is really important to note, defense is literally everything in Master Mode. Yes, Magic Conch is my only magic mirror at the moment, and probably for the duration of this entire playthrough, given I haven't really been exploring underground recently. So defense means literally everything in Master Mode, because I talked about this on a previous stream, but the way they have doubled down on defense's abilities is very, very bad. So originally Terraria was every 2 points of defense gives you 1 guaranteed damage reduction on every hit. So enemies doing 10 damage, you have 4 defense, you're only taking 8 damage. Because 4 divided by 2 is 2 damage reduction, 10 minus 2 is 8, right? Easy. Easy maths. It's hollowed key, but again, I can't open that until Plantera. So why is that so bad? That's bad for many reasons that I don't need to get into. I don't think I really capped off the discussion about like resistances and what a good armor system is. Essentially, a good armor system relies on you to have a good armor system, you should be able to receive like threat from normal enemies regardless of how defensive your character is. That is never possible when you introduce as much guaranteed damage reduction as Terraria has. Originally, it was pretty okay because effectively defense was halved what it currently is. Then in expert mode, they made it so most of the time you usually pick damage boost over defense. See, but that's fine when the damage of enemies and bosses isn't pushed as much as it is in master mode. In expert mode, they boosted the health of everything. They boosted the damage a bit. And they gave bosses new AI. And that was like the main thing, is they gave bosses new AI. So even if you don't have the most defensive character, if you learn the new AI that's more difficult, you can still avoid all the attacks and be fine. And technically that's still true. You can still avoid all of the attacks in master mode and be fine. The problem is the average player is not going to avoid every attack, right? When you introduce a defensive system that relies around, like, exclusively around guaranteed damage reduction, which Terraria has doubled down on by having this, just having this early on obtainable expert mode item that reduces damage taken by a flat 17%, and also damage, or I guess I should say defense in master mode is 100% effective now. So in expert mode, they made it 75% instead of the base 50%. And now in master mode, 100% of your defense is taken away from damage when you're hit by something. So I have 42 defense right now. If I take 50 damage, I'm only taking 8 damage. Why is that a problem? That's a problem for a number of reasons. Obviously, the way Terraria is set up is once you reach hard mode, enemies get harder. I can't remember. Do enemies might get stronger at certain points too? Like, I don't remember if enemies get a damage boost upon killing mechanical bosses or killing Planetara or killing Moonlord. I don't remember. I think that was talked about, but I'm not sure if that's a Calamity thing or not. Regardless, how do you keep your weakest enemies even remotely a threat when, like, say, going into hard mode, it's expected, and I'm just making these numbers up just for the sake of argument, say the game expects you to enter hard mode at 20 armor or 20 defense. The enemies that are hitting you are going to do a reasonable amount of damage for your expected entrance level of defense. So things are going to hit you for, say, 50 damage. Maybe previous to hard mode, things were hitting you for 30 damage because they don't expect you to have any defense. Now things are hitting you for 50 damage, expecting you to have roughly 20 defense, evening out to the same relative damage because the game intends to scale with you, right? That's what Terraria has basically tried to do, is have the game scale in difficulty with the character by making all enemies harder once you reach hard mode, and etc. And that's pretty normal to have a game's difficulty scale as you progress through it. The thing that's not normal is as much guaranteed damage reduction, because when you have guaranteed damage reduction, the things that are doing 50 damage to you all of a sudden do 1 damage to you once you have just a little bit more armor. Like, not even if you're counting, like, the titanium armor I has is like a good base point 42, that means the things that were doing 50 damage previously doing an effective 30 damage to me because of my 20 armor are now only doing 8 damage, which means previously I would have died in like a few hits to a bunch of enemies doing an effective 30 damage. I mean, that's not true, but let's pretend, because I haven't worked out these numbers perfectly. I'm just trying to make an example. Now it's taking, at least 3 times more hits. You can at least argue that, right? So there's a number of issues. The biggest thing about guaranteed damage reduction is once you reach a certain point, it removes literally all challenge. And not only does it remove literally all challenge, but it means that the optimal way to play no longer is about, oh, I'm sacrificing some defense for offensive power. That's completely thrown out the window when defensive power is so much stronger than offensive power. It's like the power cap for offense is like very strictly capped. You can only do this much damage. I did get the frozen wings. You're not wrong. Whereas the damage output is so hardly capped at a point that is very balanced for how much health the enemies have, because the enemies are going to have the same amount of health. The enemies are going to have the same amount of defense. Damage is a very easy thing to balance. Whereas the player's defenses are a much more tricky line to toe on how much defense should you allow your players to have. I think Terraria has really overstepped the line with how much defense they let the players have at this point. Especially with the additional accessory slot. Just the addition of another accessory slot on Master Mode is another 4 guaranteed damage reduction, because you put warding on one of those accessories, right? Like, not even ignoring power creep from, like, extra weapons, extra armor. No, just, like, the addition of being able to put warding on another accessory super pushes the already excessive defense cap. And the fact that defense is now 100% guaranteed damage reduction is absurd. So why, and this is the same example I used last time I talked about this, why on earth would you ever use the magic armor that heals you? Because it has less defense than, like, even if you're using armor that is like away from the class you're supposed to be playing as, even if you're using magic weapons, it still makes way more sense to use whatever armor has the most defense, because 30 defense difference is the difference between taking 30 more damage on every single hit. Every hit, right? Every hit that is not totally blocked by your defense, uh, you are taking that much more damage. Yeah, this is because of B armor. Because B armor, you're making me look at the stats. Okay, where's B armor? Just to talk about summoners and how they are completely unviable in the game, let's look at B armor. B armor has a combined defense of 13. And let me double check that is... Okay, no. There is the spider armor. So the spider armor is the current best minion armor. That is defense 20, though. 20. Versus my current defense with titanium. I don't know why it's telling me. Oh, did I make the ranger one? Okay, so in this example, I did say it makes sense to pick whatever armor has the most defense, but honestly, a difference of 10 defense, it's too easy to decide. It's too easy to decide for me. Do I want to take 10 more damage on every hit, or do I want to do a lot more damage? And in this example, it makes more sense to do a lot more damage. However, does it make a lot more sense to use the spider armor, which only has 20 armor total? I don't think so, because that's going from, currently my max armor I could have just from armor is 49. Like, I'm fine sacrificing 7 defense for the extra damage I get from the ranger helmet. I don't think that most people playing Summoner are that happy that they have to sacrifice 29 extra damage on every single hit just so they can have, like, literally... And Summoner armor is so much more important to Summoners than any other armors to, like, their respective class. Because what do Rangers get? They get a little bit of extra damage. What do Mages get? They get a little bit extra... What do Melee people... They get a little bit of extra damage. What do Summoners get? They get the ability to play as their class. You can't... Like, summoning is useless. Everybody always has one summon or 2 summons with the enchanting table, but you can't, like, that can't be your only damage source unless you can have more than 2 summons, right? And the worst of the worst is just how sad summoning is, even when you are doing everything right. Even if we ignore the defense disadvantage, just that the absolute pathetic offense potential of summoning, and it's not helped by the way they calculate damage and how summons can, like, cannibalize damage from each other so that nothing actually gets through is pretty rough. Something you think they could have... Yeah, no, definitely. Summoner is, like, super neglected as a class in general. But that's not the only thing that's been neglected in Terraria. I need to use the bathroom real quick. But when I get back, I will continue the original conversation I was having, which is what things have been left in Terraria pretty much untouched for far too long. So yeah, I will get back to that in mere moments after I leave my hairstylist and angler to get murdered. That is dog. Stylus just killed some ghost armor with a pair of scissors. Dude, she is alive. Look at that. Let's go. Alright. So, the thing about Terraria is that it was so clearly designed in the way that I am currently designing the game I'm working on. And let me tell you, that's a bad idea. Like, if you genuinely want your game to be the best it can be, it's a bad idea. I haven't been to my house in a while. Don't make fun of my inventory. I've literally, for like the first hour of this stream, just walked back and forth in this desert killing things until the hollow spread. Okay, I should make a house. That's originally what I was gonna do. So yeah, you definitely don't want to design and iterate on a game like the way I am currently doing with mine. And I can say that for, you know, good reason. Because I've got first-hand experience, right? Do I still seriously? No, that's not a copper pickaxe. It is a copper axe. We can ignore that one. Terraria was very, like, obviously added on, like, iteratively without even thinking about where the game was going. Which, like I said, is you know, I can't blame them. It's the same thing I'm doing with my current game, and there's a reason behind why I'm doing it. I guess I can kind of understand why. I mean, at the time, it was just Redigit, right? Or yeah, that's his name, as he goes by online. So when you are literally just working on a project primarily by yourself, which, as far as I'm aware, he was, I think he had assistance, but not programmatically, and I don't really think design-wise, really. Oh, are you talking about the... It's the new titanium armor effect. Whenever you damage things, you get these little crystals that do damage. The old titanium armor effect was put on hollowed armor, and as far as I'm aware, the old hollowed armor effect was just removed. I don't even remember what the old hollowed armor effect was, though, so I don't think anybody really cares. But yeah, God, now that I'm... See, this is why I walked back and forth in this desert for so long, because when I'm actually trying to do something, I lose my train of thought so easily. I understand, like, when you're working on a project primarily by yourself, there's not much to hold you back from just being like, yeah, I'm just gonna throw in some new content, like, chuck in a few features, don't really care about, like, if this all adds up to one collective good project. I'm just, you know, just tossing things out there, seeing how it goes. And there's nothing wrong with that while you're prototyping. Like, that's literally how prototyping works. You just toss things out, see if they work. The difference, though, is that when you're prototyping, you get the wonderful opportunity of saying, oh, this didn't work. I'm gonna remove that. I'm just gonna take that out. That sucks. I hate that. That shouldn't be in the game. It's not fun. It is horrible. Take it out. And I'm sure that when, like, all of the newer additions to Terraria definitely were prototyped a bit more. Like, I'm sure they didn't just toss golf in there, although it kind of feels like they did just toss golf in here. Okay, these are going to be the most boring houses, and I am okay with that. no longer care about putting any thought into my houses at all. I just want to have these houses and be done with this place. So, yeah, I don't know. They honestly probably did just throw golf in there and were like, yeah, it works, people will like it. Which, I don't know, maybe people do. I don't really care. The thing that... When... the difference between, in my opinion, what is like an absolutely excellent, like... The golf cart mount is good from what I've seen, but like the golf itself, how many people are like super excited about it? It's kind of fun, but like the amount of effort it takes to make a good golf course is monumental compared to how many people are interested in it, I think. Anyways, golfing aside, the difference in my eyes from what makes like a game that I am not ashamed to say, oh, this is nothing short of like absolutely brilliant. The designers are gods among men. They have tested this beyond belief and made such a refined product. The main key thing that's required is, I don't know, focus, I think. I think the best way to describe it is focus. I mean, if people, there's no issue with liking to build. Which is where it's hard for me to have these conversations, because, like, I can say, you know, I hate certain aspects about Terraria, and there will always be somebody, in this case, it's gonna be you. There will always be somebody who says, well, I like that feature. And there's nothing wrong with liking the whatever feature I have an issue with. Because I, as I've said many times, am an opinionated dickhead. So take everything I say with, I don't know, grain of salt really isn't the right word to use here, or saying. Take everything I say with a grain of arrogance, is what I'll say. Because I understand that, you know, everything I'm talking about is pretty much subjective, so there's no right or wrong way to make games. I'm not saying that the way Terraria was created was wrong. I'm just saying that I don't think it was right. That's what I'm getting to. But that's just me, I guess. So, it's focus. That's the best way to put it. I respect games that have focus so much more, and like, so solidly understand. Like, to understand, to make a game, there's a difference from saying, oh my god, like, never in my life would I have imagined this game... Whoop, we got trees. Never in my life would I have imagined that this game would take off like it has. And there are examples like that. I don't know. I guess Notch probably didn't imagine Minecraft to take off quite as much as it did. But to a certain degree, I'm sure he understands it. Like, I'm sure Notch understands Minecraft and is like, I get it. I get why an immersive Lego sandbox is a success, right? Like, that's understandable. People get that. There's no hidden lesson to learn about Minecraft. Yeah, Minecraft have a cube. You got it. Nail on the head. So, something like Terraria, I'm not 100% convinced that the developers would all agree on what makes Terraria a good game. I'm pretty sure if you asked all of the current people who have collaborated on making Terraria, they would all have a different answer as to why Terraria is successful. And on one hand, that's kind of interesting and kind of cool. On the other hand, to me, it shows that the game doesn't have a clear focus, and there is no direct path to make good content additions, for one, and there is no direct path to make a sequel or make any sort of similar game to Terraria. I don't think that if the developers from Terraria were like, okay, we're making Terraria 2, and yes, I know they have said that they are going to. I don't trust... I hate to say it, but I don't really trust them. Unless they really relook and evaluate what makes Terraria good, I'm not sure I could trust them on that. I really don't think I could. Rip Terraria Otherworld, exactly. And that was a different developer studio, managed and overlooked by the official Terraria developers. I'm just doing this to add a little bit of interest to the area. So it was managed by Relogic. You know, they were carefully watched over and tried to make sure things were running smoothly with the other studio. But obviously, the other studio either didn't have a good grasp of what made Terraria good, or even more worrisome is the Terraria devs who are watching over don't have a good understanding of what makes Terraria good either. There were some good things about it, for sure. I think that, I mean, personally, I would say it was a definite improvement immediately in Otherworld, just for saying they wanted to, like, have a focus. Like, there is an actual goal, like, the game is about, you know, purging the corruption, etc. Like, that, having a real focus, something that you're working on at all times. Yes, I'm using the word focus again, even though it's kind of in a different context. It's still mostly the same thing. Like, so long as your game has a focused goal and you know what you're doing to make your game good, I trust in your ability to make games. I believe in you as a game designer. Yeah, exactly, yeah. You got it. So something like Slay the Spire, right? Like, there is no doubt in my mind that the developers of Slay the Spire... There's no doubt in anybody's mind. Like, anybody who has played Slay the Spire... I mean, it's such a more, like, mechanics-focused game that if you don't fully understand what makes that game good as you're creating it, nobody would know about it, right? Like, you can't have a Slay the Spire and, you know, have a million separate other features. Like, Slay the Spire is not a successful game if, instead of just getting the cards as a progressive mechanic to the game, you know, go into a farm and start farming the cards. You know, it just... It wouldn't make sense as anything other than it currently is. Slay the Spire would not make sense if it was like, imagine something like Darkest Dungeon, or, I mean, similarly XCOM, right? Like, just to get the idea across of, like, a long-going campaign where you're slowly changing a deck. Like, there are... You could maybe make that into an interesting game, like a campaign where you go into certain areas and maybe you need to adjust your deck and, like, active removal to get rid of certain cards that wouldn't be beneficial in a certain area, whatever. Maybe you could make that an interesting game. However, it's very clear that the developers of Slay the Spire went into development knowing what they wanted to make. They wanted to make a game about deck building. And as you can see, there's plenty of articles about it that they've done. It was not a smooth process. There were, like, I think at least 2 years of development. Maybe more than 2 years. It might have been a super long dev process, I don't remember, but at least 2 years of development before anything was shown publicly to the open eye about Slay the Spire. things are going good. I'm very slowly building houses by wasting my time talking way too much. So, yeah, like, they knew what they wanted, and every single addition to Slay the Spire, I guarantee, was with that original idea in mind. You know, is this making a good deck building game? What is wrong with this as a deck building game? And from there, you know, if you've got a very solid understanding of what you want your game to be and what you want the main focus to be, I believe that you can make a good game. Now, on the contrary, we're gonna talk about Terraria again. Why is Terraria not focused, and is that a bad thing? Obviously, like I said, some people are going to argue, no matter what I say, some people are going to argue the opposite and say, well, actually, I love the building in Terraria. Actually, I think golf is my favorite mechanic. It's all I do in Terraria. Actually, if you took out fishing, I would never play the game. All I do in Terraria is fish. You know, all of these mechanics that I'm not a huge fan of, and I think take away focus from the game. Some people love, and that's fine. Like, I'm not arguing to say that these shouldn't be a mechanic in a game. I'm not arguing to say that you shouldn't make games like this. I am just talking about what I personally think is good in games, what I personally respect in games, how I plan to make games in the future, and why I think it's good. So, the way Terraria has done it, and I wish there weren't so many enemies so I could at least somewhat build, but that's kind of impossible right now, because it's a full moon, I guess. I don't think that many of the content additions to Terraria were really thought about all that much, which I hate to say it because it sounds really rude. Like, I don't want to say that these developers, like, put no thought into their game, because obviously, like, some thought has gone in somewhere. You don't just accidentally make a game that sells millions of copies. Somebody on the dev team understood, at least to some degree, what Terraria should be, okay? And maybe Terraria is good because it's a mess of all of these completely incoherent, like, rough, not smoothed out at all mechanics that just don't mesh together in any way. They're just completely separate from each other. Maybe that's what makes Terraria what it is. I don't personally think so. I think that it's a formula that could definitely be improved upon. I think that the things that I enjoy in Terraria could easily be focused into a separate game that, in my opinion, could be maybe not more successful, because a lot of Terraria's success is due to its timing, and that's something that can't really be replaced. Welcome back. But I think it's fair to say that I don't think, not only is it not impossible, I don't even think it would be hard to make a more focused idea of the strong parts of Terraria that I think deserve to be their own game in their own focused product that really emphasizes those good parts and really stretches out, like, the meat of the game that is the most enjoyable, getting, like, the most enjoyable per, you know, minute played in this game. I really think this is the last update, and if it seriously isn't the last Terraria update, that says a few things to me. I mean, it already says a few things to me that Terraria has been updated so much farther past the point where they've already said numerous times, like, 1.3 was originally supposed to be a send-off to Terraria. They said that 1.3 was going to be the last major update. They've been saying for a long time, like, you know, we're working on other projects. We don't want to work on just Terraria anymore. Any updates to Terraria are going to be small, and our main team is going to be working on something else. The fact that Terraria has received so much more recently, if anything, tells me that maybe what they were working on outside of Terraria wasn't going well. Obviously, Otherworld was cancelled, but, you know, they definitely had more on their hands than just Otherworld that they didn't fully announce yet. So hopefully they take some time to really think about what makes Terraria, right? I don't think you can repeat success unless you completely understand how you got your success in the first place. Slime has fallen from the sky. Epic. Absolutely epic gaming moments. I just can't build these houses. Okay. I'll just kill King Slime. I'll just do it. I'll just kill King Slime. After I sell a bunch of garbage and try and remember where I left off on that topic. Oh, tons of garbage, man. Guess I should keep that. Don't need dirt anymore. Yeah, I only got the one of those. Left the other one on the ground, not that it matters. I was using those to build. Don't care about 13 lead. Okay. So I'm not super confident, like I have already said, I'm not super confident that Terraria fully, or the Terraria developers fully understand what makes Terraria successful. Oh, I don't have a mounts. You know what? You're going in mount, or tools. I don't even want you, I'm just gonna sell you. For a number of reasons, I can very easily tell by the way Terraria has been developed and been added to that, at the very least, it's safe to say that there is, like, not a firm agreement from the developers themselves within their own team as to what Terraria needs. I did murder Skeletron Prime. That was at the end of last stream, if you want to check the VOD. Should still be on Twitch. If not, it definitely is still on Twitch. But if not, all of my VODs are archived on the YouTube channel beneath the stream window. Been making sure to keep that up to date. There's a little bit of a backlog, but genuinely not that much. So, should come out soon if it isn't already out. Yeah. I need to fucking get to my point at some point. The way Terraria has been developed, the fact that there are so many different systems, none of which really meet together in any meaningful way. Like, there is no interesting, like, design space explored between the systems. Like, you could maybe argue that fishing in the corruption is a combination of the corruption system and the fishing system, but, like, the systems are so surface level that you find it satisfying when I kill something. Well, it's a satisfying weapon. Sound design helps too. The fact that, like, pretty much all of the non-combat related mechanics are so surface level, like the new happiness system, there's no depth to that at all, as I talked at length on either the last stream or the one before it. Fishing is literally just, like, their excuse for, well, a few potions, which is just kind of annoying that you have to fish for, like, a fairly, not required, but, like, recommended combat item. Mainly talking about the cave armor fish, or whatever it's called, armored cave fish. Because that's like 8%, again, going back to damage reduction, 8% damage reduction from a potion. Like, that's way too much. Yeah, so that's the other thing fishing is for. Fishing is literally just, oh my fucking god, where did it come from? Again! I hate corruption, dude. Fishing is just an excuse for the fact that they didn't want to, and I hate to say it so cynically, but like, they didn't want to make it better when you can't find the items that are, like, required to progress the game. So things like things like Hermes boots, like, borderline required to progress. Like, if you don't have Hermes boots, it's safe to say, especially on, like, expert mode, where they increase the speed of it, you're not going to kill the wall of flesh. Like, you need Hermes boots, right? It's a required item. I don't think it's controversial to say that. And I don't care, like, I really don't care about people who are going to argue and say, yes, you can kill these bosses without these certain accessories. Just come on, dog. Like, understand, be real for a second. Like, even if it's possible, the game certainly isn't fucking fun without Hermes boots. Like, nobody wants to move at ass movement speed for their entire playthrough. So, the fact that they just kind of are using fishing as like a, oh, you didn't get lucky, so be miserable for like a few hours until you get the fucking fishing reward you need to progress the game is really bad, in my opinion. You can, but it would be difficult, exactly. It's just not fun. It's not a good system. If they had a boss that you kill it and that gets rid of all of the corruption, like, I would be satisfied, personally. But they would never do that for a number of reasons. A, corruption is required to craft certain things, obviously. But outside of that, it's just a part of the game. And they've made it very clear that, hello. They've made it very clear and kind of doubled down that the idea of managing this shit is just what you're supposed to do in your playthrough. And they've kind of helped it out by killing Plantera, making it so it spreads much slower. But this is what I'm doing right now, in my opinion, is something that nobody should ever have to do when playing Terraria. It's not fun. It doesn't add anything outside of, like, a chore I have to do every now and then so that my world doesn't just become unplayable. Yeah, Laughs and Clintaminator, however you say it. Clintaminator, that's it. They definitely give you options to combat the corruption, but when you don't have the options available to you yet, because I haven't finished my houses that I need to finish building, what are you supposed to do? This is what they deem fun gameplay? They did. They added a new max level boot that has water walking, lava waders, I mean, that's just it. They added water walking and lava waders to the, lava charm to the speed boots. So if you liked walking on water / swimming in lava, you don't need to use a separate accessory for that. And the worst part about it is because that requires so many things to make. Like, if you just play, if somebody is watching this and has not played Calamity a single time, just play, it would seriously take, like, less than 5 hours for you to understand why the ability to craft those accessories is infinitely better than just getting lucky, either by finding chests or by fishing for literal hours. You should be able to craft the items you need to beat the game. That shouldn't be, like, a point of discussion. I wasn't even paying attention to the music. Fucking gnomes can go in blocks. So yeah, I forget where I left off on my original point-making tirade, where I never get to the actual point I'm trying to make. But just trash, like, all of this. Trash it all. I've got plenty of all of this. I don't care. Just trash, 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 trash. Maybe keep that one. Okay. Now I can go back to my favorite part of Terraria, building houses. Ha ha ha. I think I was talking about something about the fact that, yeah, like, the features are so surface level, and then I got distracted by fishing. There's no real interesting way you could link them together. Like, how are you... And, like, outside of the fact that it just doesn't make sense, like, you can't link fishing with golf in any reasonable way other than maybe having, like, a golf reward being a fishing rod and maybe a fishing reward being, like, a golf putter or something that looks like a fish. I don't care. You know, you get the point. There's no meaningful interaction with the systems in the first place, so you can't really meaningfully introduce mechanics from other systems to make it more interesting and make things mesh more, like, synergistically. Make the game feel like it's one coherent thing instead of a bunch of things just slapped onto it. Well, I mean, if you came in earlier, like, I've been going on this tirade since I literally turned on the stream. And it originally started by me talking about Path of Exile, which I'll probably get back to at some point, just to tie things together. The problem, I think, with having such surface-level systems like this, and on one hand, like, say, let's look at a game like Stardew Valley, which I'm also not the hugest fan of, because it also kind of suffers from a bunch of completely disconnected systems that don't line up with each other. It's not like a recipe for a bad game. There are obviously many people who love Terraria. There are many people who love Stardew Valley. Right? Like, I'm not saying that, oops, I forgot to make a rainbow root. I'm not leaving Stardew Valley out of this. I am not saying that, oopsies, that these can't be good games because they're designed this way. Like, that's not what I'm trying to make my point. I don't want anybody to leave this and be like, well, this guy's just an asshole who thinks that fun things shouldn't be allowed, right? That's not what I'm going for. I'm just trying to get across what I think is not only the way that I want to make games in the future, it's the way that, like, the games that I enjoy most and have the least amount of problems with are games that are highly focused, highly understand, like, the one thing that makes them great, and just absolutely nails it. Like, everything in the game is about making that one thing as good as it can be. It is focused. It doesn't have anything surface level. Everything that has added to it, or has been added to it, was added for a purpose, right? And how do you get there, right? How do you find the formula for what makes your game good? The only answer I can give you is it takes experimentation. And if back to the topic of like if you enjoy your games too much, or your game ideas, if you are too proud of your own ideas and won't even like think of the idea that something about them could be better, or something should be changed or removed entirely, you're not going to have a good product in the end, in my opinion. You might have a product that's somewhat similar to Terraria, like, oh my god, I think it would be the best if I made, maybe it's a roguelike game, you play as a dragon, also I want there to be fishing, I think it would be good if your roguelike dragon built a house at the end of every run, and you farm on your house. You know, you can make games like that. I'm not saying you can't make games like that. I'm just saying, at the end of the day, when I'm thinking about what my favorite games are, a game like that will never make it on my list. So, why is that? And what is the solution? How do you get to the point where you make such a hyper-focused game? I think the first thing is identify the fun part of your game. To me, Terraria's fun part is the combat, to some degree the movement, though the movement could use work. I do like certain aspects of the movement I love, like the ability, the fact that your wings are limited, but when you run out of wing juice, you can grapple and cancel the grapple to continue flying. And if you have platforms in the air, you can even do it fluidly, like I'm in a boss arena, oh my god, I'm out of wing juice, or I think I'm getting close, so I grapple and then I just start going up naturally. That's like really fluid, and that's probably like my favorite thing about Terraria's movement and what I think it does so well. And yeah, I mean, your favorite things can be about exploring and building. Like, either is an acceptable answer. To me, that's never the focus of Terraria. And, like, to me, a game that I think does exploration and building much better is Minecraft. So if I want that kind of experience, I don't know why I wouldn't just play Minecraft. And, you know, I've got a genuine question for you. If your favorite parts about Terraria are exploring and building, what do you think about the combat? Like, isn't it... wouldn't it be weird to you to have this, like, extra layer that isn't your favorite part to interact with? Like, it's hard for me to rationalize your favorite part being building. I'm not saying it's not possible. I'm not, obviously, like, if that's your favorite part, that's your favorite part. I just, it's weird for me to think about that. Because it's just so foreign to me that I can't really get a good grasp of it. Because what I think Terraria does best is its combat. And I think that, to some degree, the developers agree, because if you look at Terraria's original, like its very first design... Oh, I should make rainbow torches to make this place as horrible as possible. You're just not that intrigued in it. And you're not good at fighting, gotcha. I think, it definitely outlines, like, why my favorite mod is Calamity, because Calamity, all of the developers on Calamity obviously feel the same way about Terraria that I do. They don't really add, I don't think, any content that is building related, maybe like a very small amount. All of Calamity's content is about pushing the difficulty, adding more fun, challenging boss fights, adding more fun and interesting combat mechanics, and making the rest of the game as convenient and easy to ignore as possible. And what I mean by that is just by having the ability to craft some of the uncraftable accessories in Terraria, they allow you to ignore a lot of the fishing and a lot of the mining for hours. So Calamity is my close to my ideal. There are obviously, I've talked about issues I have with Calamity before, but they're mainly issues about its balance and not really the content additions. Some of the content additions are a little weird. Anyways, so I guess what I'm trying to say, I guess it's just hard. It's hard to say like a formula for what makes a good game, in my opinion. Like, how do you reach that conclusion other than just testing things over and over and over again until you find that one thing that you think is going to like be the main mechanic. Like it and I'm not saying you can't have other systems that interact with each other. Obviously, you can have a successful game with multiple systems in it. Let's look at XCOM, for example. XCOM stays very focused, however, it does have additional layers to it. And there's nothing wrong with like an additional layer that ties back heavily related to what the main core mechanic is. I don't think that detracts from your game at all. Maybe it does a little bit, because I would never say XCOM is one of my favorite games, but Slay the Spire, which has literally no other mechanic than its card building, or deck building. Well, I guess you could count the combat with the cards as a separate layer. I guess you could. Let's work with that. Obviously, Slay the Spire wouldn't be good if the actual card combat wasn't engaging at all, so there's a lot of balance and necessary thinking that had to be done with that. Even the being able to see what the enemies are going to do before they do it was a pretty late addition from what I recall. I was gonna make rainbow torches. How did I get so distracted when I came here? So, you could definitely argue that that game has two different completely separate systems that very tightly mesh together so that they don't even feel like two separate systems. It just feels like you're building a deck and using it, right? Like that, even though those two things are completely different, and some people who play CCGs don't like building decks. Some people who play CCGs just get meta decks online and think it's fun to play the cards correctly. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do that. Obviously, tons of people have fun with it, otherwise nobody would play competitive Hearthstone, or nobody would play competitive Magic, right? But for me, the enjoyable part is always going... The more enjoyable part is always going to be the draft. It's always going to be making the deck that I'm using. And the fact that Slay the Spire drags that creation process over, like, a very enjoyable, well-balanced, well-refined, like, roughly hour of content is awesome. And you could also safely say that the events, and maybe even to some degree the shops in Spire, are their own systems, and that's probably a fair argument to talk about, but this is like a completely different conversation that maybe I'll save for a different time about like what makes a good system, and how do you properly integrate systems with other systems. I'd say that, oh, why did you move there? It is not safe here, buddy. Why did you move there? You already had a house. What the hell? What the heck? Anyways. If I was to talk about systems, I would say, like, the one thing I just want to leave as a note. I don't know, footnote doesn't really make sense because I'm not really talking about it at all. A head note? A note before I have started talking about it and won't talk about it on the stream. The one thing I want to say about systems is that I think you've introduced a really good system to your game if A, it properly meshes with the main mechanic of the game, and B, if it meshes so well with the main mechanic that you don't even think about it as a separate system. You just think about it as the game. So let's go into things that I think are done well in certain games, things that I don't think are done well in other games. Oh, they didn't have a house because the underground obviously got corrupted, and now I have to deal with that. Yep. I love this game. So obviously I'm not a fan of a lot of things in Terraria. How do I find myself enjoying it? That's a good question. Next question, that's a good question. How do I find myself enjoying Terraria? I think the things that it does well are done well enough that even though I am not allowed, because Terraria does not allow you to ignore the parts of it you don't like, straight up says, if you don't like this part of the game, sorry bud, you have to interface with it. To some degree. They're not forcing you to interface with golf. They, to some degree, are forcing you to interface with fishing, though. And that's something I really disagree with and kind of wish they did not double down on. But I have no say in the matter, outside of just using a mod that lets me forget fishing. Because fishing is not... I don't think that many people would say... Like, I can understand your favorite part in Terraria being building. Like, I don't fully understand it. I don't personally agree with it. Oh shit, I wanted to talk to that guy. No, there's a wall. I've been wanting to talk to this guy for so long to see if he sells anything new. Oh my god, please. Okay, he doesn't sell anything new. I don't really care. I should probably buy the yo-yo glove just in case I care at any point. Buy a D6, sure. I don't understand your favorite part of Terraria being building, but I really don't understand anybody who would say their favorite part is fishing. Fishing is pretty fun, but not your favorite thing. So, to talk about fishing, I've talked about it before, but I'll talk about it again. Fishing is... I mean, this was literally the whole, like, the only thing I talked about for one stream, and it was also in relation to Path of Exile. Fishing... Let's talk about fishing. Can we talk about fishing? I've been dying to talk about fishing. All it is an extended wait and then a loot box. Sometimes a literal loot box in the form of crates, but even before you reel the line in, it is a loot box on what you are going to get from your time spent waiting, right? You spend some time waiting, you offer bait, which is another issue with fishing. It's less of an issue because they've added so many ways to make gathering bait convenient. Just having an auto, like, held net into the game outside of the fishing quest reward, which is its own completely separate horrible thing. The fact that fishing quests are something you can only do once a day, and the benefits from them are like 90% garbage and like, well, no, more like 99% garbage, 1% items you actually care about. Like, there's just a very small amount of fishing rewards that are actually exciting. Most of it is just, like, bait. Fishing potions. Yeah, I'm just blowing away the walls until it is happy. So... the only reason fishing is a thing in the game is A, for potion ingredients, and B, because the game sometimes will more or less arbitrarily force you to engage with it. There is no... I don't think anybody is just going to say, I want to go fishing because it's fun. Oh, and the other reason to engage with fishing is because you can get bars that let you skip a mining section. Like, if you don't want to do early hard mode mining, they've nerfed it a little bit, but if you just go mining in hard mode, you can avoid... Or, sorry, if you go fishing, once you turn it to hard mode, you can avoid this early mining segment. But... I don't know. Okay, so here's the thing. I don't think Minecraft fishing is any better. I think Minecraft fishing is equally as bad. So this is where I get controversial and weird with it. I believe that when you're... Okay, there's two different thoughts that I have about it. You can either have a completely separate minigame, so long as that minigame is fun, it's okay. And if you are going to have a completely separate minigame, I think it should be completely optional. If it has nothing to do with the core, like... I'm going to call the core of Terraria the combat, okay? Especially because, like, fishing doesn't even give you any building rewards or anything. It's only for the sake of getting items that are borderline required for movement, so we're gonna chalk that into the core of Terraria. Unless your minigame has some interaction with the core mechanic of your game, in this case I'm talking about Terraria and combat, and no, fishing does not have anything to do with combat, outside of Blood Moon fishing, which they have introduced, but there's like no rewards for it, so it's not really rewarding. It would be different if Blood Moon fishing was the only thing fishing was, and that's where I get to my, like, somewhat weird statement on what I think fishing should be in a game. You either have it as a completely separate minigame that's enjoyable, but if you're going to have it as a completely separate minigame that's enjoyable, you should not reward the player with anything that ties into the main core mechanic of the game. You cannot have a reward for the core mechanic unless the core mechanic is involved in some way with the minigame. And I am deadly serious about that one. Because what you'll end up having, say you have a game like Stardew Valley. Say that Stardew Valley was primarily about farming, which is kind of what I would want the game to be, but it's not really. The game is about doing a bunch of various mini-games that have no connection to each other. Say that Stardew Valley had awesome farming, and they had some interesting systems about leaving crops fallow for a season, certain synergy for planting crops next to each other, whatever. You can make an interesting farming game that is only about farming. Say you take that version of Stardew Valley that doesn't exist, and you introduce fishing, exactly how it is in Stardew Valley. That is 100% acceptable, as its own optional little minigame that I honestly think that the minigame fishing in Stardew Valley is pretty fun. I wish you didn't have to wait so much before you get a catch, but that's just part of the balance for only being able to catch so many fish in a certain day because of the actual real progressive day-night cycle that actually matters. So you can introduce fishing to this theoretical hyper farming version of Stardew Valley, so long as you don't get anything rewarding in relation to the farming while doing this fishing minigame. Why is that important? Because people will hate it. People will hate the fishing. People will not want to engage with it at all. And they are punished in the main part of the game that they enjoy playing because they are forced to engage with this horrible system they don't like, or they are just losing out on some content in the portion they do like because they don't want to engage with this system that they hate, right? That's just... You shouldn't do that in a game. You should not do that. The alternative method of doing a mini-game type feature, and it doesn't have to be a mini-game, like you can make it an integral part of the game, just like, well, I don't know, it's hard to say, because in XCOM, like the base building part of XCOM, really doesn't have anything to do with the combat. It is kind of like its own separate mini-game that I do know some people personally that really kind of hate that part of XCOM. So XCOM does not do it that well, honestly. It's not a good example of meshing systems together in a good way. I'm trying to think of a game that does it really well and is still mini-gamey. I'm just gonna go to Path of Exile. I'm already jumping to Path of Exile. Well, actually, I'm gonna go with my fake analogy first and tie it into a more understandable, approachable fake example before I go into real examples again. Back to this fishing minigame that's in a super farming version of Stardew, right? Obviously, it would be a bad idea to make a player who doesn't want to engage with this fishing bullshit at all be forced to fish to get content for the part of the game they do enjoy. That's just horrible design, in my opinion. The solution is to heavily integrate the main part of the game. If you're going to have a reward for the main part of the game in a minigame type system, have the main part of the game be an integral mechanic in this minigame. So how would you relate that to fishing? It would be weird to relate farming and fishing directly, but there's numerous ways you could do it. You could have certain farmable baits that you plant in your garden to get you like certain rewards from the fishing directly. So already you're thinking about, oh, how am I going to design my farm so that I get more rewards out of the fishing, right? Like that's tying it back into the main mechanic directly. And then outside of that, you could even add another layer onto it. Like, again, it doesn't make much sense, but maybe you can grow, like literally grow, as if it was a crop, a place to fish, and maybe by growing this this place to fish, I mean, you wouldn't have it, like, you would want some, sorry, doesn't Stardew's new fish farms count? I don't know what Stardew's new fish farms do, but if it's literally exactly what I'm saying, then all the better, you know? All the better. Like, I'm not saying that this is a unique idea, I'm just trying to make an example. If Stardew did it, and they do tie it together more directly, then that's sick. Like, I don't have an issue with that. I do have issues with other parts of Stardew. Okay, guys, let's chill with the dweebus talk over here. Okay, you can call me a dweebus if you want. What I'm trying to say is, like, obviously, if you're making a mechanic like this, it doesn't make sense to, like, plant seeds and grow a spot where you can fish. You could still have it make more sense, like planting certain grass around water, and maybe there's more interesting mechanics that tie back into the rest of the farming mechanics. Like, you can have really tightly linked systems that all focus on this main mechanic, and eventually it blurs the line between being completely separate systems, and you just get a much more, like, coherent product. And that's what I love in games. I love it when that happens. I love it when a game understands what it does well to the point where it can freely introduce content in a way that ties back to that really, really good mechanic that they've, like, fine-tuned and made as perfect and as fun as possible. So now I'm going to go into real examples. I'm going to go into Path of Exile. Why do I keep bringing up Path of Exile? Why do I keep talking about it? There's good reason. There is very good reason to talk about Path of Exile when talking about introducing new content to just any game, just introducing new content to a game. When creating a game, and it's super awesome that Path of Exile is, like, live developed and constantly gets better, because it makes it so easy to see into their design process and see how they've improved at making content for Path of Exile over the years. Because they have gotten a lot better than when they first started out adding content to Path of Exile. There was a good, like, oh Jesus, like 3 years? Maybe longer than 3 years, where I just would not play Path of Exile, and my girlfriend really wanted me to play Path of Exile with her again, and I was like, I don't know, dude, last time I've played Path of Exile, because the original, when I first played Path of Exile with my girlfriend, it was her first time playing the game. It was my third, maybe fourth time playing through the game, and I had played through the game through various content editions. I originally played the game in beta, public beta, not private, and I played through a few of their different leagues. At the time, they were still calling them leagues. Oh wow, this somehow is still counting as a desert. I thought, well then why doesn't my ice place count as ice still? That's bullshit. Maybe they fixed that. Maybe I can go to the, I did see my game updated, I think. Maybe I can go to the ice place and still get an ice pylon. That would be pretty nice. I wish I had a demolitionist so I could break away more of the corruption down there. I think I'm just gonna have to mine it. So yeah, when Path of Exile first started making new leagues... oh, what if... I just fucking teleported so I could use a pylon, forgetting that I literally just placed down a pylon. Because I'm brain dead. I'm a dweebus. When Path of Exile first started adding content, in my opinion, I'm not gonna say they were bad. They definitely weren't as good as they currently are, though. Path of Exile's first... Oh, I do have a demolitionist and I'm stupid? And I can't buy a pylon. But is it because you're unhappy? You aren't happy. Despite... Oh, no, because, yeah, no, the game is still thinking this is hollowed and not ice. Okay, that makes sense. I hate it. Wait, but you have a snow pylon? Despite not even liking this biome? What did they do to pylons? What the fuck is this? Is this a bug, or did they change something? I don't understand why he is selling me pylon. Wait, what? Are you happy? Oh, he's happy. He's happy enough. Never mind. Okay, so never mind. They did change it so that Wait, no. Why doesn't she consider herself in a snow biome, though? She likes snow, doesn't she? Or am I misremembering? She likes snow. You're in snow. Get over yourself. I'm getting so distracted by these weird things in the game that I am forgetting that I'm trying to make a point about Path of Exile. Path of Exile's early leagues were very... I mean, they are what I would call, similar to Terraria's fishing, pretty surface level. They did not add that much to the game. They didn't take away from the game. They always added balance changes and enough stuff to keep the meta interesting, but the leagues themselves were not, like, separate from the game, is the best way to put it. Like, when a new Path of Exile league came out at first, it was just, like, a minor content addition, or maybe, like, weird modifiers on the game that make it slightly different, but not different enough that you don't feel like you're playing the same experience, just different in a weird way. Like, if you were playing Terraria with a setting that made enemies blow up when they die. That's kind of how the early Path of Exile leagues were. They were just, like, kind of gimmicky, didn't add much in the way of, like, you know, reason to play the game again, in my opinion. But they've improved quite a bit. So eventually my girlfriend persuaded me to try Path of Exile again with her, and I was kind of blown away. I was blown away by how much they added in a league compared to how much they used to add. So what is a league in Path of Exile, for those who are not aware? A league in Path of Exile is, for one, a huge content addition, for two, huge balance changes, that hopefully incentivize you to play the game differently. But the main point related to what I'm previously talking about is when you're playing on the League, like, realm, I forget what they call it. Do they call it realms? That doesn't make I think they just call them leagues. Anyways, when you're playing on the League server makes more sense and is, like, accurate to the real world. When you're playing on the League server, there's, like, multiple options when you make a new character. You can either play on Standard, which is just the game with the additional updates. Like, you still get the balance changes, you still get the new unique items and all of that. You don't get unique items specific to the League, which I'm going to talk about, what even is a league. When you're playing on the League, like the new League, God, I wish this wasn't the most confusing thing to explain to someone who's never played Path of Exile. It's just a different server. You can either play on Standard or you can play on the League, okay? Let's stop talking about nomenclature and get to what it actually is. When you're playing on the League server, I'm just going to call it a server even though they don't call it a server, all of the items you find are completely separate to that server, and that gives them a huge advantage for trying out new crazy mechanics that could potentially break the game. Because leagues are temporary. Got the corruption key. Leagues are a very temporary thing. They last 3 months, and when the 3 months are over, all of the items within that league may never be transferred to server, or to the standard server. So say they introduced a unique item in that league that was far too strong, that's never going to make it to the main game, at least not in that form. So that's why they keep it separate. They keep it separate to avoid anything way too strong making it to the standard, like, kind of quarantined version of the game that is safe from extreme power creep. And this league in particular has a ton of potential power creep, way more than any other league, recently at least. So, back to what a league actually is, though. When you are playing on a league server, it introduces a new system, like an entirely new system, with its own mechanics, that hopefully make a new, fun, engaging way of playing the game. That's what their goal is. Most of the time, they're fairly successful. Some of the times, they aren't that successful. I didn't really enjoy the previous league all that much. I thought Delirium had a ton of issues that made it a lot less fun. On-death mechanics being like the main source of damage is pretty bad in my opinion, but they're sticking with it. So if a league is well received, even if there are balance changes that need to be made for it to make it into standard, if people are enjoying the content of a league, it makes it into the main game. So what Path of Exile currently is a combination of a main storyline, a pretty well-tuned endgame that was in its own, in addition, in a new league, was the endgame, and they've changed the endgame a lot recently. The mapping system, specifically, and master missions also got a huge change. But basically, I'm just gonna say what I mean. Leagues are mini-games, okay? Leagues are very well-integrated mini-games. Why does Path of Exile not add something like fishing? And I've made this exact point on the stream before, when playing Terraria. Path of Exile will never add fishing in the form that you expect it, because every single league they add is basically a different way of fishing, right? You can't expect, like I said the last time I talked about this, like, technically you could have a fishing-themed league, but outside of, like, some inspiration of what the league might play like, that's the most important thing. What is the league gonna play like? What are the players gonna do? How do they interact with the systems? So long as that is solid, the theming doesn't really matter. So you can have a league that is all about, like, gathering certain bait or finding certain fishing ponds, tossing it in, and, you know, getting rewards based on that. But the thing that Path of Exile understands, and why they remain so successful, is because very early on they made the correct decision, in my opinion, that whenever they are going to add one of these new mechanics, they are going to make sure, like 100% sure, that the main way you are engaging with it is through the combat that already exists in the game. Because that's what Path of Exile does well. That's what Path of Exile is about. They don't want to distract you. They don't want you to have... I mean, you can Google Path of Exile if you want more information about it. But they're not trying to... Whenever they're adding a mini-game-like system, which is basically every single league, they don't want it to take so much away from the normal gameplay that people don't want to engage with it, right? Because if you make it too different, and you make it have nothing to do with the actual combat, which is the core of Path of Exile, you're going to get a ton of people who won't interface with it at all, and that would be a pretty pathetic failed league. Who cares about a bunch of new content that has nothing to do with the game, right? And that's basically how I see fishing in most games. Like, who cares about sitting still for like 2 minutes and eventually getting something that's kind of interesting? I don't like that. I think that Terraria's Blood Moon fishing is like the closest you can get to similar to what Path of Exile does, and the closest you can get to what I would want is they're tying the fishing directly into the combat. I think it kind of sucks that it's only during an event, and I think it sucks even more that you still get normal fishing events during the Blood Moon. I think you should, or sorry, normal fishing rewards, not events. I think you should only get the Blood Moon fishing, like, enemies during Blood Moons. I don't know why you're just rewarded with, like, shitty bass still. If I want to engage with the cool event fishing, let me engage with the cool event fishing. So yeah, that about sums it up. That about ties a satisfying conclusion to why I think focus is important in games, how you find focus in games, why unfocused games are, in my opinion, going to run into more problems than focused games ever will. Oh, that's corrupted. That's why this is still corrupted. How on earth did that get corrupted? I thought I made sure that there was nothing touching, but whatever. Now I know what I'm supposed to be clearing out. Because that felt like really far away to still be spawning enemies. Or still be spawning corrupted enemies, I mean. I really do believe if you're gonna add a system that you really want people to engage with and you really want people to enjoy, it needs to tie into the main reason people play your game. And it's not that hard, you know? I mean, Terraria literally did it with Blood Moon fishing. That is what I would want all of Terraria's fishing to be. I mean, it's a little bit weird to fish out monsters, but it's more fun. It's more fun to fish out monsters, engage with the part that I think is the most enjoyable with Terraria, and not everybody does, as you can directly attest to, Potato Magic. But I just think it makes a hell of a lot more sense, especially in Terraria, where the rewards are already tied into the combat. The fact that the rewards are tied into the combat, and it's like a completely separate system that is, I mean, first off, surface level and boring, and secondly, has nothing to do with combat. Like, why are you rewarding me with combat things when I didn't do anything combat related to get them? I don't want to be forced to engage with that system just to get what I should be able to get through normal play. Normal play being... I want to be able to progress Terraria just through the combat. And it's going to go more than just fishing. I'm not even talking about the mini-game sort of things, like golfing, fishing. Obviously golfing has nothing, but at least golfing doesn't reward you with things that benefit combat all that well. This is epic gameplay. This has basically been the full stream, is just ranting and mining corruption or building like 3 houses. Ooh. So yeah, it is not just the... How is that not corrupted? Where did you get corrupted from? There was just like corruption spawned from nothing here. See, the corruptors don't spread corruption. Where did it come from? I just don't understand how corruption spreads, I guess. Yeah, so it's not just going to stop at the more gimmicky minigame type things in Terraria. I'm going deep here. I also think that, I mean, personally, obviously this is where I start to interfere with other people's enjoyability in the game. I am so for the combat in Terraria that I really don't want any other mechanic unless it directly ties in with combat. I don't want to build houses. I don't want to be forced to. I'm sorry. I don't want to be forced to fish, obviously. Here's the big one. I don't want to be forced to mine. I think the mining in Terraria is about as boring as it gets. Like, there are obviously huge advantages you can take if you deal with, like, potions, which is another thing I don't want to have to deal with. I just want to be able to buy potions. I don't want to have a shitty herb farm that I have to micromanage if I never want to run out of herbs. It's just tedious and annoying, and I don't want to engage with it. It's not what I find fun in Terraria. Like, if you're not the... I'm firing super loaded rounds at things that I'm sure a lot of people enjoy in Terraria. And like I said, like, there's something to be said about the fact that maybe Terraria is successful for how unfocused it is. And maybe I'm the one who doesn't really understand Terraria. Maybe the devs understand it more than I do. I don't... Kill me. I'm just trying to save my world from corruption. So that's possible. I don't think it's the case, because I am both arrogant and also very opinionated. But I think there's reasons behind why I hold these opinions as strongly as I do. So yeah, like, literally my Terraria would just be combat, and I'm sure, like, tons of people would hate it. It definitely wouldn't have as much widespread appeal, and definitely not as much marketability. Like, Terraria really launched and got off the ground because people were comparing it to Minecraft. Even though Terraria plays nothing like Minecraft, I don't think it would have gotten that huge boost early on if it didn't get compared to Minecraft. Because it was the first game, really. Obviously, there were games before Minecraft, Infiniminer being the inspiration. Sorry, Zach. Sorry about that one, as always. It's just... Yeah, Minecraft was the first game, you're right. Or, unless you're talking about Terraria. I forgot how I worded that sentence, really. Point is, I'm sure a lot of people would hate my version of Terraria, but obviously, if I care this much about Terraria, you can bet that I do have plans to make a similar game at some point. So hey, in the future, let's test it, you know? Look at me in the future, maybe, oh, it's it's a really ambitious project, so honestly, I might not ever even start working on it, because it's a lot to think about. Making a game with the just sheer amount of content it would require is kind of daunting, especially when I currently don't have plans to make a team or anything. It would just be me. So yeah, that's frightening. But anyways, if it does get made in 20, 30, 50, 100 years, if I'm still alive by then, you can compare the numbers directly and be like, ah, Will, you fucking dickhead. You didn't know what you were talking about. Terraria was good because it was so unfocused and messy. And maybe that is the case. Maybe I'm thinking about games the wrong way. But I definitely think there is something to be said about focusing your game, finding out what the enjoyable part is, and honing that part until it's as good as it can possibly be. There's a place for minigames, don't get me wrong. There is still a place for minigames that have absolutely nothing to do with the core mechanic. So long as, again, like I said, it doesn't reward you with things that have to do with the main game. Another good example is in Stardew. Let's look at the arcade machines. My favorite was the the Prairie King, or whatever it was called. I just thought that was a fun little game. I mean, that's all there is to it. It's a little arcade game There's not a lot of depth to it. There doesn't have to be. It has nothing to do with the main game of Stardew Valley. Not that any of the mechanics are really focused, like I said, but you get the point. It is a completely separate thing, and it doesn't reward you for the main game at all. All you get for succeeding in the arcade machine is you get a portable version that you can put in your house. I'm bringing Stardew. I mean, this isn't even a bad example. This is an example that I think is good. I think that Stardew did a good job, although I kind of took a stab at it for not being focused. That's an example of what I want out of a completely side, unrelated minigame. If you're gonna have an unrelated minigame, just, you know, simple reward. Like, the only reward for it is an achievement on Steam, which, you know, if you don't care about the minigame, you're not gonna care enough to get that achievement. And the ability to play the game in your Stardew house, which is cool. I like that as a reward. So there's a place for that. I think that it does. It's just like, mini-games are fine. If you have a separate mini-game like the Prairie King, it's just a fun little distraction. Like, you know, if you're playing Stardew and you're just like, I don't really want to be playing Stardew right now, just play some Prairie King. It's fun. Takes you out of it and then gets you excited to get back into the Stardew section when you're done. Hopefully gets you excited to get back into the Stardew section when you're done. So I have no problems with that kind of minigame. I think that there's a good place for them. I still prefer minigames that are heavily integrated with the core systems. Like a League mechanic in Path of Exile. Like, literally, if you aren't aware, and I'm just going to say it for context, the most recent League announced for Path of Exile is farming. Like, that is a mechanic that most people, when they think about it, are not going to imagine having anything to do with killing enemies. They're not going to imagine it having anything to do with an ARPG, and if anything, people would expect it to literally just be farming, and oh, maybe it's like Terraria's potions. Maybe you just farm up herbs and you get, like, buff effects for going into certain maps or boss fights. No, that's not what it is, because that's not what Path of Exile is. The rewards for this League are crafting. Like, none of it makes sense, right? You're farming. When you're finished farming, you harvest the crops, which are enemies, so it ties it directly into the combat mechanic, which is what Path of Exile is all about, and then the rewards are crafting. Like, none of it is coherent. Like, when you're thinking about it in your head, you're like, okay, you're farming enemies to craft? Like, that's weird, right? But it works. It works because they tie it in with the core mechanic very well. There's no better way to do it other than directly making you engage with the mechanic, which is killing enemies, right? It's interesting because you both get to decide what kinds of enemies you're growing, and you also get to decide what kinds of rewards you want from growing those enemies. Obviously, I would like to be able to play the League so I can have more to talk about it, but that's 2 weeks off. But yeah, I don't know. I just respect it. I respect it a hell of a lot to have such a solid understanding of your own game that you can consistently make great content additions. Not all of them are bangers, you know. Still, Delirium was sloppy. I just didn't really like... I mean, you know, for as great as everybody at GGG is, I maybe don't agree with all of their philosophies, like the fact that the only way to stop higher level players is to have hundreds of on-death effects. Because sure, it might stop some higher level players, it also kind of makes regular content like the most unenjoyable shit of all time for not top players and top players. Everybody kind of hates it, honestly. The only people who don't hate it are those that didn't engage with it that much. Or didn't play it long enough to at least notice the issues. Probably. But yeah, that was a fucking long stream of me talking at a louder volume than I should have, so my voice is already feeling like absolutely fucked. If I don't stream tomorrow, it's because I can't talk. That's it. I don't know, I probably should have talked about GameStop since I went to GameStop today. I mean, I just cleaned. There was nothing interesting about going to work today. He said I'm probably not going to be called in anytime recently, which is exciting because I get more time to work on my game. I get a lot more time to fuck around on stream, and I don't get COVID-19 because I'm not looking forward to potentially having to work in a mall, doing a retail job with very little limitations or preventative measures. But anyways, I'm sure I'll be fine. I'll be fine. Yeah. That'll do it for today's stream. Did, like, absolutely nothing. I don't even know if I fixed the houses down there. Let me go check. I did, like, absolutely nothing on this stream. I seriously built 3 houses and stopped some corruption. Hopefully the commentary was engaging enough to carry... Okay, he's living down here. Awesome. Hopefully the commentary was engaging enough to carry the fact that what I was doing on screen was literally never interesting. Yeah. Thanks for hanging out. Super appreciate it, and I'll see you next time.